don't know if I hate my mother or if I'm exactly like her. Here's the thing about grief. Sometimes it's not about losing someone. Sometimes it's about finally understanding who they really were. My mother died 6 years ago, or so I thought. I buried her in a closed casket after a death that never quite made sense. I buried her again inside myself, in the silence she left behind, in the questions she never answered, in the hollow space where a mother's love should have been. But last night, after 6 years of absence, she knocked on my door, alive, with a baby in her arms, and she looked at me like time had stood still. I don't know if this is a second chance, or just another way for her to destroy me. Have you ever had someone disappear from your life so completely that you started questioning your own memories? Have you ever felt like your story wasn't written by you, but imposed on you by someone who vanished right when it mattered most? Tell me in the comments, because if I'm losing my mind, I'd rather go crazy with company. My name is Julia. I'm 31 years old, and my mother never hit me, never yelled at me, never broke anything near me. But somehow, she broke almost everything inside me. Regina, yes, I call her by her name because sometimes Mom feels too generous, was one of those women society admires. Elegant, educated, functional, a woman who never cried, who organized everything, who played every role to perfection, except being human. She raised me like someone fulfilling a contract, fed me, educated me, took me to appointments, but love, affection, connection, only for the Christmas photos. I remember once, when I was about 10, waking up from a nightmare in the middle of the night, I ran to her room, trembling, crying. She looked at me and said, "Get used to it, Julia. The world is worse than your dreams," and went back to sleep. That was the kind of person she was. Cold, realistic, objective, and extremely efficient at making me feel inadequate just for having feelings. She didn't hug me, didn't listen to me. She corrected me, always, like my existence was a project in constant need of renovation. In my teens, I became the opposite, or tried to. I shaved part of my hair, got involved with music, art, wrong people, all to see if she would react somehow. But her reaction was always the same: an empty stare, a brief comment, and a silence that left deeper marks than any slap. At 18, I moved out, taking with me 2 suitcases and an eternal doubt. Did she ever love me? I never found out, and for a long time that question haunted me. But then I simply stopped asking. I built my life, small but mine, somewhat stable emotionally, confusing relationships, some wrong choices that curiously reminded me of her. Until, at 25, a phone call changed everything. It was a Tuesday. I was coming home from work, exhausted. When I answered, the woman on the other end seemed to be reading a script. "We regret to inform you that Miss Regina was found deceased in a motel room. Apparent suicide. The body was unrecognizable. The burial will be closed casket." Brief, cold, no details, just like her. My reaction was nothing. Seriously, nothing. I hung up, sat on the living room floor, stayed there for hours, without crying, without thinking, just empty. The following days brought the funeral. Closed casket, no chance for confirmation. They signed everything quickly. It was a breakdown, mental health issues. She was strong on the outside, but must have been fragile inside. Nobody knew much, and I didn't ask, because deep down, this was what I expected from her: a cold, unexpected, unresolved end. But the grief? That was slow. It didn't come all at once. It appeared in details, like when I had to fill out a medical form and realized I no longer had a mother to put down as emergency contact. Or when I heard an old song and remembered the smell of her coffee, that smell I pretended to hate, but that gave me a strange feeling of home. I started visiting the grave occasionally, not to pray, but to ask questions that would never be answered. Why didn't you try to be different? Why did you have me when you never wanted me completely? Did you hate me in silence? Sometimes I brought flowers. Sometimes I brought anger. For years, this absence became routine. I learned to live with the fact that my mother was never really present, and that, in the end, she had been consistent. She disappeared completely. But nothing, absolutely nothing, would prepare me for what happened that night. 6 years later. Ordinary day. Ordinary routine. A knock at the door. 3 dry knocks. And the sight of her, alive, steady, intact, holding a baby in her arms. I swear, for 2 seconds, I thought I was seeing a hallucination. It couldn't be real. The door was slightly open, and there she was. The same silhouette, the same stare, but with shorter hair, paler skin, and a baby in her arms, sleeping as if the world was at peace. She looked at me and said, with the serene voice of someone who just came back from the grocery store, "Hi, Julia. It's cold, isn't it?" That's it. I couldn't react, couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. I just stood there, frozen. My head screaming, "This isn't happening." But my body, paralyzed. She acted like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Can I come in?" She was already coming in. She walked past me as if she still lived there, left her bag on the armchair, adjusted the baby in her arms, looked me again as if she was expecting coffee. I, on the other side, still at the door, with trembling hands, cold sweat, my stomach churning, my mind racing, but no words came out. I wanted to scream, run, ask what the hell was happening, but all I managed to say was, "You died." She shrugged, apparently not, and smiled. The audacity of that smile made me nauseous. I closed the door slowly, thought about calling the police, but what would I say? "Hi, my dead mother is in my living room with a baby and acting like it's a normal Tuesday." Who would believe it? I sat on the arm of the couch, keeping my distance. She started gently rocking the baby. Her calmness made me panic even more. "His name is Samuel. He's 3 months old. He's calm, barely cries." I remained silent, observing, trying to figure out if this was real or if my mind had finally broken completely. The house was plunged into awkward silence. The ticking of the clock became the sound of a horror movie. Every second that passed without explanation was an assault. "Aren't you going to say anything?" she asked. "What do you want me to say?" I finally responded, with a broken, bitter, low voice. She sighed, looked down at the baby. I imagined it would be strange, but I needed to come back, at least once, before disappearing again. Disappearing again? Relax. I just need to stay here a few days. Then we'll talk. The way she used words, we, talk, relax,
irritated me, as if we were two friends who drifted apart because of a silly fight, as if what she had done was normal. She faked her own death, left me with unresolved grief for 6 years, and now walked through the front door with a baby thinking a few days would be enough. Still, I didn't send her away. Why? Maybe because I wanted answers. Maybe because, as absurd as it was, she was still my mother. Or maybe because part of me never stopped waiting for this. She went straight to the kitchen, opened the cabinets as if she remembered where everything was, took the kettle, turned on the stove, and started making tea. I watched, as if I were watching a play written by a sadist. "Want some chamomile?" she asked. "Do you think I can swallow anything right now?" She laughed softly. "Always so intense, Ju." The phrase cut through me like a blade. She still thought she could define me, that she had the right to call me intense, dramatic, or anything else. I took a deep breath, looked at the baby. Samuel. So small, so calm, innocent in the middle of an emotional war he didn't even know existed. I finally faced the obvious. "Is he yours?" She responded, "Yes." "Really?" She hesitated for half a second, almost imperceptible. "Yes." Her yes didn't convince me, but at that moment, there were bigger questions in line. "Why, Mom? Why did you do this?" She fell silent. The tea was bubbling, the baby was breathing deeply, the smell of chamomile filled the room. A smell that, ironically, reminded me of childhood. "You weren't there, Julia. You were, but you weren't. I wasn't anything anymore. I had become a piece in a display case, and I couldn't stand being predictable anymore, invisible, dead inside." I wanted to argue, scream that this didn't justify disappearing, faking suicide, inventing a funeral, leaving me orphaned in body and soul. But the words didn't come out. She finished her tea, drank it slowly, then sat on the couch and adjusted Samuel in her arms. He slept deeply. "I'm only staying a few days. I need silence, a corner, then I'll disappear for good. I promise." "Disappearing again won't erase what you did," I whispered. "I know," she replied. That night, she slept in the guest room. Samuel slept in an improvised nest on the living room couch. I didn't sleep. I stayed awake staring at the ceiling, reliving memories I thought I had buried. The smell of her morning coffee, the sound of her heels clicking on the cold floor, the way she locked her bedroom door when she wanted silence, which was almost always. And now, on the other side of the wall, she was alive, as if death had just been an administrative error. The next day, she was already awake before me. The kitchen table had fresh bread, brewed coffee, and the same uncomfortable silence as always. What changed is that now it had a name, social security number, and a falsified death certificate. She didn't wait for my good morning, got straight to the point, as always. "You want to know why I did it, don't you?" I nodded silently. Part of me wanted answers. Another part wanted her to disappear again and leave me with the pain I had already learned to live with. She stirred her coffee, staring at the liquid as if looking for the answer there. "Julia, I spent my whole life being a woman who didn't exist. Mother, wife, exemplary daughter, all fake. And one day I simply broke.
But I didn't break outwardly. I broke inside. I sighed, trying to contain the anger that was starting to boil in my chest. And faking your own death was what? Alternative therapy? She gave a crooked smile. Not ironic, ashamed. I didn't want to kill you along with me. That's why I needed to die alone. You succeeded. You killed me. But in slow motion. The sentence came out colder than I expected, and I noticed she felt it. I knew I would destroy you, but I swear, Julia, at the time it seemed like the only way out. Way out for whom? Because for me, it was just a way in to guilt, grief, anger. Silence. The baby cried in the room. She got up to go to him, but before leaving, she told me this. You think I was selfish, and I was, but at that moment, it was that or disappear for real. I chose the kind of death that would leave me alive. She left me there with more questions than answers, but for the first time, it didn't seem like she was acting. It seemed like finally, Regina was showing some part of herself I had never known, and that left me even more confused. On the third day, she looked at me with that calmness that always seemed like arrogance and said, I'm leaving tomorrow. It was like the air changed density. I should have felt relief, right? But for some reason, I felt empty again, as if her absence, even after everything, still occupied more space than her presence. She didn't ask me to stay, or to forgive, or to help with Samuel. She just said she was leaving, and let the silence do the rest. That night, she made soup. Vegetable soup. The only thing she cooked when I was little. I sat at the table, more out of inertia than desire. You were good at that. Pretending everything was okay, I said. And you learned fast, she replied. The phrase dismantled me. You never really wanted to be my mother, did you? She stopped her spoon midair. I never knew how, but I swear I tried, in my own way. Your way was to disappear. She didn't argue, looked down, and for the first time since she returned, she cried. It wasn't a scene. It wasn't manipulation. It was contained crying, stuck, as if she were aging from the inside. I thought leaving you free from me would be better than continuing to hurt you every day. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, wanted to scream that abandonment hurts more than any difficult coexistence. But something in me froze. Maybe I was tired of fighting for a childhood that would never come back. Maybe I just wanted it to end. The next day, I woke up to a silent house. She was gone. On the bathroom mirror, a Post-it note. Thank you for burying me. I could only die because you were strong enough to survive. And on the couch, a stuffed bear. The same one she gave me at 8 when I broke my arm. I had thrown it away. She brought it back. Samuel went with her. She left no address, didn't say where she was going, and for some reason, that also relieved me. It's been 3 weeks since she knocked on my door, and sometimes I wonder if it really happened. Some days I can almost convince myself it was just a dream. Other days I wake up thinking she'll be sitting in the kitchen brewing coffee, and in some rare moments, I miss her. Not her, but the chance to understand, to ask again, to maybe hear a different answer. But she left for the second time, and this time, there was no death, coffin, or funeral, just another silence. A crueler silence, because now I know she's alive. You know what's strangest? I can't hate her like I thought I could. Not because I forgave her, but because deep down, I think I finally understood she didn't run from me. She ran from herself.
and from everything the world expected her to be. She left me with emptiness, with a ghost baby in my memory, with a note on the mirror, and with a puzzle that doesn't fit together because all the pieces are broken. But she also left me with a question I carry every day. Would I do the same if I were in her place? Because looking deep inside, I also want to disappear sometimes. I also feel crushed by expectations, by the versions of myself I created just to please others, by the fear of failing as a daughter, as a woman, as a human being. Maybe the only difference between us is that she had the courage to vanish, or the cowardice. I still haven't decided. Maybe I never will. In you? Have you ever had to bury someone who's still breathing? Have you ever felt abandoned by someone who was never really there with you? Tell me in the comments. Maybe your story will help me finish mine. Or maybe we'll discover we're not as alone as we think. Because, in the end, love is a kind of madness. And being a mother, perhaps, is the loneliest of all.